So we will get this meeting started at 4:03 p.m.
Just a heads up, it's fine, but I got a notice that I can't turn the video on because it's supposed to stop it.
Yeah, me too.
Should now, try it again now. We thought there was gonna be a basketball court behind you.
No, there is. It's just a little bit down the hall from the left.
All right, so we got a quorum. We'll get started at 4:03 p.m. Commissioners, can you please acknowledge your presence?
Jeff Schulman.
Yeah.
Robin Gillian.
Brown. And today we have, not technically a commissioner, but we have Deputy Mayor Renner sitting in for Raymond Oakleaf.
Correct. Thanks for having me, all.
Good to see you. First item on the agenda is the agenda. Do we hear a motion to approve the contents of the agenda as proposed? So moved. It's moved by Greg. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. Any discussion or proposed amendments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We move on to item 3, public forum. Deputy Mayor, I don't know if you have any comments you want to make in public forum today, or if you're just observing the theatrics.
Observing theatrics. Thanks, though.
Great. I don't see anyone else from the public, so I'll close down item 3. Move on to item 4, which is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the contents of the consent agenda as presented? So moved. That is moved by Greg. Is there a second?
Robin will second.
Thank you, Robin. Any discussion on the consent? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Abstentions? We move on to item 5, which is our first and only action item of this month. Item 5.1 is the budget amendment to be presented by Marie. Be willing to entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Finance and City Council the approval of the budget amendment as outlined in our agenda packet. Do I hear such a motion? So moved. It is so moved by Greg. Is there a second? Jeff or Robin?
I can second.
Thank you, Robin. All right, discussion to be led by Marie.
Very good. Well, good afternoon, commissioners. The budget amendment, we're just bringing, and we'll continue probably monthly until the end of the fiscal year, bringing budget amendments as we need to sort of shift monies around. Probably the largest portion of this budget amendment is to do with an AIP grant for the mill and overlay. This is a grant that we are putting an application for, and which will go in by the beginning of May. And we expect to commence construction of the mill and overlay of runway 1533 once we get the grant. The design work gets done ahead of time, and when I put the budget together, I didn't quite put enough in to cover all of the anticipated design expenses that were going to happen this year. So that's why I'm amending that particular grant. It is 90% federally reimbursed by the FAA. It will be. This is how our design, a lot of our grants work. We get reimbursed with that design portion when we get the construction portion of the grant. And with the remaining 10% local share, combination of state and local, which is the airport, which we will go under the PFC to collect the revenue eventually from, and another application. So other than that, we do have just sort of a number of other items. Probably the second largest one is the repair and maintenance. We're sort of going ahead and putting more budget funds where we need them, and where things become obvious as the year goes on. We have additional expenditures that we don't necessarily know exactly what buckets are going to be in. So this is sort of an adjustment. The other large budget amendment as part of this is we're amending the marketing promotion line item, and we are been hosting between hosting our events and then our Breeze Airways adding service. We've been doing a lot of promotional stuff, more promotional stuff than we maybe have in the past years. So we are also adjusting that item. And that is the sort of the overall presentation I have for the budget amendment.
Do you want to talk through any of the offsetting decreases of that?
Sure. So the decreases are some areas, we've been very lucky this year with the runway de-icing. I should say a lot of it's a combination. I mean, it's always about weather and safety. Safety is number one here at the airport. We never compromise on safety. And our construction, our crews will do whatever is necessary to keep those runways clean and safe for everybody who's using them. But we did incur less expenditures. It's a combination of, I think our team is very experienced and they've tried some new things. We're using some liquid de-icing, which we started last year. And they're just managing that a little differently, but it really depends on, a lot of it is so dependent on the weather. But I think they've done a really good job of managing that this year. So we were able to take some of the funds from here. Some other accounts is we just didn't incur quite as much expenditures as we maybe have in past years. So I was able to use some of those funds that we're not anticipating spending money. So it really is a matter, I need a little more here than there. Little bit out of, I was able to adjust the utilities gas, but it was like $11,000. And probably the only other line item that I'll talk to is the energy efficiency expense line. We budget a lot of money. We're actually spending a lot more than we budgeted in energy efficiencies. And that's because a lot of it's been coming out of the project. It may not be necessarily getting coded to energy efficiency. We've been doing a huge project in the garage. And that is replacing all the light fixtures with energy efficiency light fixtures. And it's more than a 12-month project, but this is huge savings that we anticipate having. And so our actual energy efficiency line item, we're just not coding things in the same way there. So we're able to sort of reallocate those funds to other areas.
Thank you, Marie. Commissioners, any questions for Marie on the budget amendment?
Marie, you were sort of fading in and out a little bit, so I didn't catch everything, but it sounded like, glad to hear everyone loves the offsetting savings. Could you repeat what caused the expense increase?
Oh, certainly. Well, some of the expense items, as good as a job as we do to budget for them, and I'm going to bring it up here. Okay. Did you hear what I said on the grant, or should I start there?
90-10.
Okay. Yes, that was on the grant. Did you hear what I explained? I don't know how much I'm cutting in and out.
It's pretty good. It's better now.
Okay. I'll try to make sure I'm facing the microphone.
You say that there were some unanticipated expenses that occurred after you set things up, and I just wanted a little bit more clarification on that.
Right. When we go ahead, we're working on our budget today, this month for the 2025, just to give you an example of timing. We put together the budget for fiscal year 2024, the year that we're in. We have a pretty good idea of what we're ultimately going to spend. Sometimes the timing, or in this case, the timing on the design work, we might not have had the exact amount of the design contract yet for this upcoming the runway mill and overlay. And so sometimes when I put the money in there, knowing that we're going to get reimbursed by the FAA when we get the grant in 2025, I underestimated the timing of the design work. And so that is just simply an adjustment to recognize the timing of the design work has happened a little sooner than I had originally anticipated when I put that budget together a year ago. So that's not uncommon. We do our best, but sometimes on the timing of these expenditures on the grants, sometimes they happen a little quicker than we anticipate. In this case, that's what happened.
Thank you.
Right, so this is, just to clarify, to build on what Greg was asking, this is actually a timing question. We're not up in the total cost of the design. It's just that we're on 24 versus 25.
Correct. Did you want me to talk about any of the other expenditures? Is that helpful?
That was helpful.
So on the other expenditures, they're just really adjusting to reflect how we're spending the money this year. For example, the next item is the on-call services for terminal. We've been utilizing our on-call is when we put our staff, typically our maintenance staff folks, on call. We've been utilizing them a little bit more heavily in that capacity. It's a union thing that we do this way, that they're available to us if we need to bring them in. And so we've been doing more of that this year than we typically have in past years. So most of them are pretty minor adjustments, or not necessarily that they're unanticipated, but we'll do a better job. I learn from it each and every year. If the sort of the trends of how we spend in line items, I take that in consideration when I'm building this year's budget, the upcoming budget.
And to Marie's credit, right, these are forecasted budgets when we put them together, these on-call services or even the design of 1533. We have a schedule of, generally we have a schedule of expenditures, especially for the big projects, but we really don't know where we're gonna end up until later on in the year, until we contract with somebody, until we go forward. Good thing about that with AIP projects is the design work, and of course, if it's eligible work, which in this case it is, it's all gonna go back into the grant anyways. And then the on-call services and even some of these other things. Just shifting around, making sure it all works out at the end of the year. We're definitely not increasing our total budget, just shifting things around.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, anything else on this topic? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? That works. Item 5, we move on to item 6, which is financial updates. So Marie, you get to keep on going.
Very good. Thank you. Is my audio okay, or am I choppy? I'm okay. Thank you. So the financial report that you have in front of you this month is for February, through the results through February for the P&L, the recovery metrics, the banking balance, and the AIP receivable report. We just did a drawdown and waiting for the reimbursement, in fact, but under the CRISA and the ARPA. So we did draw down a little bit of money under there to cover some of the expenses, just to start drawing down for this year. The year-to-date revenues I messed that up. Through February, were $18.5 million. Operating revenues continue to be trending higher overall year to date, which is always a good sign. Our parking revenue and our rental car revenues, again, are trending much higher. The expense, I thought I changed that, but the expenses through February were $11.75 million. This is higher, but this was also planned. We built our budget higher this year because we were taking advantage of getting some larger projects done. We also knew that we had budgeted and forecasted fully filling the open positions that the airport has had. During COVID, we had a number of open positions, and we are finally pretty close to fully staffed. So some of that is just reflected in the salaries and some of the other expenditures with that. We're also seeing some higher expenses in our professional and consulting. Again, these were things that we planned for. And so that is none of these are out of line or unusual or unexpected. And our cash update, we had the lowest cash balance that we've had, in $1.6 million. We did not owe the city any money. And this is primarily, again, it's timing as we're waiting for funds that are coming predominantly from the FAA. So we just did get a block of money from them in April, a little bit at the end of March. And we're still anticipating some more funds. So we're actively on that and going to be closing out quite a few grants. That takes time for them to reimburse us. So we'll be waiting on that. We're also working with the city. We are working to renew our grant anticipation note. So we are working with a couple of folks in the downtown office. They are coordinating, getting some proposals and getting some quotes. So we should be seeing that in the works. I'd like to have that in place and closing on that by the end of May. So that would be our time frame, perhaps a little bit sooner. That is the highlights from the reports, from the financial reports. I've certainly entertained my son's dog wants to say something. If you hear barking, that's just him. He wants some attention. Sorry.
All right, commissioners, any questions for Marie? Marie, I had just one thing, you talked about it, because I did notice that the grant anticipation note was at 0, and you talked about the low cash position. You know, do you feel that we'll have adequate cash to get through May without having that sort of the grant?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have reimbursements from the FAA that we've already been getting some of them. We have a couple of other reimbursements that are in the works that we're waiting for from some other of the agencies that it just sometimes it takes some weeks to a month or a little bit longer. Yeah, and the closeout, but we have plenty of cash. So the cash is higher than that already, which is that was sort of a low point. And I report exactly what it is at the end of the month.
Fair enough. Thank you, Marie. We'll move on to item 7, which is construction update. Larry.
Right, highlights there is MEI, the electrical contractor, has remobilized to the parking garage to restart that project, to get that going and finish over the next 12 months with all of the lighting. The alarm system is finished in the garage, but the rest of the lighting. Burlington Tech Center, permit applications are in. We're hoping for a DRB meeting with the South Burlington the first Tuesday of May for that project. That's the highlight there. South Apron project, that's the big, large 6-acre apron in front of the new Beta manufacturing plant. It will be starting by April 15th, and it will be finished by the end of June. Worst case by the July 4th weekend, as we know it right now. The glycol system upgrade, what we've been talking about for years now, that's going back and forth. We have a scope. We reviewed the scope, and we're going to next with how we'd like to proceed. We're working with the state to see if that qualifies under that $500,000 grant we received for stormwater improvements. We're working with them to see if they'll reimburse us for that and or use it as our share in that grant. So we're working on that. The other highlight is, well, I'll come to that back for that. The next project, which I'm sure Nick will give you more highlights in his report, but the big news here is we've been working with the FAA. They allowed us to submit a draft application. Even though we don't have the final numbers in yet, it allows us to get all the administrative stuff in place by the time we apply for that grant on May 15th. It will be in less time and they can expedite the grant quicker, which is really decent of them. So they're already reviewing it, where they would typically wait till we submit it on May 15th. It might be a month or two after that, but they're already reviewing it administratively. So that was very nice of them to do that. The FAA was very good to work with. That. Oops. And then the runway 1533 mill and overlay is out to bid. We had a pre-construction meeting on that. Had a few contractors show up. Bids are due on April 18th, and the grant application will be filed by. They're not due to May 1st, but we're going to a conference in Nashville April 28th. So we want to file by Friday, April 26th on all the grants, except for the next project, which will be May 15th, because that's a little different. Grant. So that's about all the highlights I can think of right now with regard to construction. Will say we are preparing 6 grant applications that will all be due by the end of the month, and it's totaling over $52 million of pass, which is just a portion of what we're going to need before we're done all of these projects. We'll be going for more. So, so that's it on my construction. Any questions?
Commissioners, any questions for Larry? Thank you, Larry. Move on to item 8. There's compatibility, which is also Larry.
All right. I think however we got the latest report, I guess we did the right one. We put the March one in the update, but instead of the April one. So the only thing I wanted to update you on was See, there were the old one, I
It's-
yeah, so.
Oh, so you just pulled it up, like you just.
So,
Yeah, just got an edit.
Oh,
yeah, we just caught that, so, however, so the only, well, there's only a few things to look for here. Residential sound, the first phase 1 and phase 2 are substantially complete, basically for construction, we'll be working towards closeout, which was the pilot programs, okay, phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 3, there's 52 homes that'll start this year. We did have a little bit of a glitch like we did last year with the windows. Buy Americans were a little bit behind, but we are working to get that rectified and move that project forward. That, I think everybody remembers, we had that manufacturer that went bankrupt and had to switch some windows, and Buy American with the FAA had to go through all that process, so it just delayed us a little bit there, but we're continuing to be aggressive to get that going. And then now we can talk about the residential sound station project phase 4, which I think we touched on last week. That's this year's application. We are out to bid right now for 16 homes. Under phase 3, we have the money to design 50, which we will do. However, because of the acoustical testing that was required, because we moved from the 70 to the 6, above the 70, which we got a blanket approval on, we have to do some individual testing acoustical between the 65 and 70, because we're moving into that now. So that's delayed us a little bit. So we're gonna get the grant application in for the 16 that are out to bid now, and another 50 homes designed. Although over the next month, we're going to get the package ready, once that acoustical is done, to go in still this year, to make up the difference the best we can between the 16 and the 50 that we already have designed.
okay, so if someone has a home with 65 D now, that has to get tested to see if they actually qualify.
Yes.
So they're the 70, they did.
Well,
No, we did.
did.
Oh, so each home.
However,
Okay.
We did sample sizing between those two comps, like, so between 75 and 70, which is the closest one, right? We did sample properties throughout the area. We submitted that entire sample to the FAA and qualified that all of these houses are similar,
Yeah.
therefore they should all pass.
Yep.
They approved that, saying yes, everything between 75 and 70 is eligible. We're doing the same exact thing now between 65 and 70.
So it's important for people to know that if they're inside that line, it doesn't like
That's right.
automatically qualify, there has to be some measurement.
That's exactly right, and that's exactly the process we're going through right now. There may be a potential that it's gonna be much harder, because as you go further out, the noise gets less and less and less.
Right.
So it'll be much harder to say this entire band of houses is approved, like we did at the higher contour. So most likely, we're gonna have to test individual houses throughout this further band.
So most likely, within this grant application process, there potentially will be a phase 5 that goes in after this phase 4 for the homes we already have approval to design, okay? Although in this phase 4, we're gonna ask for the money to design 50 more, just to keep things moving and hope we have a good winter with outreach and all that. Keep moving, it's gonna be do the best we can, with what we got.
And we'll say it again too, we said at last meeting, we will have a model, office model area for folks to come into the terminal building of the airport, which is right adjacent to this physical room here. To visit our consultant team, ourselves, and look at what potential construction or upgrades can go into their properties. So that'll be most likely up and running by summer, late summer this year. So you'll see that as a lease agreement though, because we're going to be leasing that property or that space to the Jones Family Group.
And this being a big program, it's gonna be nice to have the coordinator sitting right here, right next to our office, so.
One thing I'll add to the funding, Larry's talking about all of the FAA funding sources. Sorry, unless you were gonna talk about all of this.
Go ahead.
I just don't want to forget about the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation, OLDCC, which is an office of the Department of Defense. This is the first time that they're funding noise mitigation programs in the United States. They have not released it yet, although we've been given word that in the next couple of weeks, they're gonna be releasing a notice of funding opportunity for about $17.5 million. Larry and I and the team went through a comment period on the program itself. And we had a bunch of comments associated with, we wanna make sure HVAC is included, we wanna make sure this window is included. And we also just wanna let them know that the Patrick Leahy Burlington International Airport is applying for the entire amount of their federal program, which is $17. We're one of the, as far as I have been made aware, one of the only programs that is ready for noise cancellation projects under the stipulations of this program. And we're ready for that $17.5 million now. So we're gonna be working with our consultants to get this going. It's been a very slow process with the OLDCC. So my guess is it's gonna take the rest of this notice of funding opportunity, the rest of the summer, and really work with this new program to get additional funds outside of FAA funding for houses.
Just a quick follow-up with that, Larry, so I can understand that better, the LODC, is that the?
OLDCC.
Okay. And you said that we're applying for the entire amount?
Correct.
So that means that they have a bankroll of 17 million and we're hoping to be the only recipient?
That's correct.
Wow, that would be amazing.
It's a huge push. We've had a couple of conversations with their program managers. They are very aware of this airport and the noise program that we have in place. They couldn't confirm or deny that we were ready, the most ready for the program. But there's no other programs in the country that have as much need as we have right now, and that are prepared to do this. There's other locations like Madison, Wisconsin is a really good example. They just got the F-35, their first F-35 just came late last year. They're still redoing their noise exposure map, their noise compatibility program. They're a couple of years behind where we are on noise installation. We're ready, all the work that Larry has been doing has put us ready for that full amount, which would allow us to design a much larger group of houses and potentially construct those houses. It'll still be phased over time, but at least we'll have that secured funding. And we're not gonna give up on FAA too, they still are committed at around $5 million there as well.
Great.
Update on the noise exposure map, which is what we just touched on a little bit, is that's the update since we've had a full year of the F-35s on site. We are having our next technical advisory committee meeting on April 11th, and that program continues and will be completed through this year. The only other thing I want to give you a heads up on with respect to all the projects and grants and different grants we're going to be moving forward, there's going to be a lot probably over the next several months with contracts and grant acceptance and for all the different things we got going on. This is going to be coming. So,
And Larry, just related to that, you says that the next TAC meeting is scheduled for April 11th.
yeah,
I'm not familiar with the TAC, but it sounds as if that's like a group of airport people and maybe some community members too, or since it's an advisory committee or.
right.
Or
So
what's that?
Okay, so that group includes like the Air Guard, okay, the FBO, our airport people here, the school, the surrounding communities, who am I missing there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a large group of invitees from municipalities, including school districts, not just K through 12 schools, but also higher education schools like St. Michael's College. The airport commission is absolutely invited to those meetings. And of course, municipal leaders, both from Winooski, South Burlington, Essex, Williston. Yep, and the objective of these groups is TAC, standing for Technical Advisory Committee, is to really look at one, there's some technical stuff that we look at from aircraft operations, making sure the community leadership knows that we're studying, for example, helicopter operations. Is this your experience from anecdotal information to scientific information? Is this where the helicopters go? We review that, we review those radar data, track data, we review quantity of operations based on real radar data. All of the things that would eventually get input into the modeling, actually going through the noise map itself. And that's the next, right now we have it scheduled in June, although that may shift a little bit. After April 11th meeting, next week's meeting, the consultant group, Jones Payne Group and HMH, will start modeling our new noise exposure map. And then we're going to be prepared to present that new exposure map later this summer, both in the TAC meeting, but also in community meetings. Right now, we're planning on scheduling a meeting in Winooski, right here at the airport, to display and publish the map and the documentation around it as well. The map is, of course, map, but the documentation is a pretty big subset of objectives.
Yeah, that was leading to my next question, because I know that Bryn has been a big proponent of when are these meetings going to occur? How are they going to be advertised? What languages are going to be used? But it sounds like that TAC committee is on top of that.
That's right, and that we do talk about a bunch of that in the TAC meetings. And then we're definitely gonna be working with the city of Winooski and the staff of Winooski, both on language. I would like to have a meeting in the city of Winooski as well. Last time we did it at the O'Brien Community Center, but Brendan said that was not gonna be available. So we talk about the full gambit of not just the mapping and documentation itself, but how to publish it later this summer.
Thank you.
Great, Thomas, I saw you had your hand up, I don't know if you still have a question.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sorry if I didn't hear it. It's not not hearing everything from the room, but the DoD grant that you all are applying for sound mitigation, does that DoD grant follow the same FAA map, or do they have their own map that they are going off of?
Yeah, great question. The OLDCC uses the FAA's noise modeling, so we're going to be using our same map for qualification of that. But it is a good point, though. There is a separate map that the Department of Defense uses that is different from the FAA and our map. That map is part of the EIS, the Environmental Impact Statement. That is a different map, different process and procedures for that map. The only acceptable map for FAA funds and OLDCC funds is the FAA's noise modeling map.
Okay, great, thank you.
And both the mapping, the process, the timeline of noise exposure map, Larry's updates to this, as well as much more additional information, that's all located at btvsound.com as a dedicated website, so everything can be seen. Not just our noise exposure map, but also our noise compatibility program, which is how things are defined of how we address noise.
Robin, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure if my question falls under the current conversation, but it's something that relates that I've been curious about as I'm driving through like the neighborhood, which I do all the time. I'm wondering, has there been any houses that did not qualify, even though they were within the zone, just due to their age or condition?
No, all of the properties, especially between the 75 and 70, because we did that sample of acoustical testing, the FAA gave them all qualified. Now, the caveat to that is if there are building codes that are not up to speed, we cannot go into that property until the code is fixed.
Okay,
And then we can go in and put the new windows, doors, walls, etc.
And also, there were some people that didn't want to do the program yet until they see how it got rolled out. So there are still some people that didn't get taken care of that can come back.
sorry, it broke up a little bit. Could you say again?
So there were some people that didn't take us up on the offer at this time because they wanted to see how the program rolled out and how other people received it. And they have the potential to come back into the program.
Yeah. No, I had understood that, but I just thought, having had my own extremely old house on St. Paul Street before I bought this one, and knowing that had I thought to, even replace the windows, it would have potentially opened up a can of worms through the wall. So, just wondered if some people might not be, taking us up on an incredibly good offer because they were concerned about, how project creep that would not be included in the airport's budget.
Yeah, and that very well is a plausible statement, like, each house is gonna be highly unique and highly individually designed for what products go in and what scope creep that they might have to perform on the property that we wouldn't be able to cover.
Yeah. Okay.
But to Larry's point, even if a homeowner, whether it's a financial decision or it doesn't work out this year for their construction of the houses, they can deny the program that particular year. They're still eligible and they can still participate in future years.
All right, commissioners, anything else on noise compatibility? On to item 9, some director's report.
All right, I have a couple of updates, a couple of past events that I'll share some status updates on. I'm gonna hand it over to Jeff for a little bit for a status update on our Eclipse event happening on Monday. And then the focus of my presentation this month is gonna be related to a recent Transportation Utility and Energy Committee, often referred to as the TUC Committee, which is a subset of the Burlington City Council that Larry and I presented at last week, I think, yeah. Okay. So the first one is just the first slide there is just our partnership, and we're gonna share the screen in just a second. Our partnership with the state chamber, state of Vermont Chamber. One, we want to wish Betsy Bishop well wishes in her next endeavor. She's retiring. I'm not sure exactly when it is.
I think June.
June. But Jeff put together an amazing event, and we partnered with the chamber, and we also had State Treasurer Mike Piche up to discuss a nice little coffee discussion, if you will, in our South Concourse, which is the first time I ever remember having an event in the concourse of this nature. There's a couple of pictures here where we set up the chairs and they had a nice conversation right where 8, 15, and 14 are. Is pretty cool setup. We're opening things and opening the door to more and more of these types of events. So if anybody's listening, watching, we want to use this entire building to the community's benefit, both pre and post security. Dave and Jeff are working on a really cool new program to allow more and more of this type of event to start to happen more seamlessly and using our security checkpoint more efficiently as well. So it's a really exciting shift in how we typically look at spaces here at the airport.
So someone could get married here.
Someone absolutely can get married here again.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of weddings here, right here on the mezzanine too. And it definitely open to that, or on your new building too.
The new shaded windows,
Yeah.
nicer.
That would be beautiful. Might get remarried. To the same church.
We can just say yes.
April 8th, that's Monday, that's just a couple of days away. Is our pretty massively complex but expertly managed April 8th eclipse event with multiple things happening here at the airport. I'll hand it over to Jeff and Dave if they want to take a piece of their each events as they struggle how they manage it.
Yeah, yours is more complex.
Hours.
Yours is complex, mine's fun. Yeah, so we, right now, I'm just gonna ticket sales, we have about 956 tickets out in the community right now for the Eclipse event. We have some food trucks, we have an alcohol purveyor, we have 2 bands, WCAX is sending 2 of their personalities to help MC the event. We got mini golf, we'll have a bunch of static displays, and so it's a lot of moving parts. We've had our gross income, if you include what he's working on, for the entire eclipse is around $50,000. And our hard expenses are probably around 15 to 20. So we're recouping some of the costs that we put into the community to support other efforts with the eclipse, while also providing a fun, safe, unique location. It's gonna be over on the West Apron. We will, people will park in the parking garage. We have 3 buses. Just confirmed the 3rd, that's just gonna be running on a rotation, and they're actually gonna be taken onto the airfield, because we're anticipating Wilson Road is just gonna be a zoo. And so that's just a lot of process that we had to go through, coordinating with ops and FAA, NTSA, and everybody and their brother, to make it happen, but everybody at the airport has touched this event. It's been a true collaborative effort. And I think it's gonna be very successful, and I guarantee good weather, we're gonna have good weather, so we're excited.
So for the aircraft, we're anticipating about 100 and right now 106 additional aircraft, G8 aircraft that range from small aircraft to a Boeing business jet, which is a 737
Private jet.
Private jet. So we have to find a place for all those aircraft to park. So the majority of them are going to be coming that day. So what we've done is we've had meetings for the last month and a half. So we've had weekly meetings up to this point, and meetings with FAA, air traffic, AMPO, which is heritage, to make sure that everything is going up. Contingencies to make sure that we get them all in. What happens is it breaks, the aircraft gets breaks down in taxiways. So we have a great plan. I think it's going to go smoothly. We have notification about the pilots to let them know that they have a big reservation to come in and to park here at the airport on ramps, and that's full. We've actually closed that down because we're at capacity. So one that we don't know about is perhaps somebody that hadn't made a reservation. So, and I think with all the contingencies, thought of, I think we're complete. So. It's gonna be a heck of a challenge, and we're actually closing down. We anticipate closing down one of our taxiways for parking too. So, a lot of moving parts.
Like I said, expertly managed and in different capacities from a lot of people to a lot of planes. I don't remember ever hearing about 130, 140 plus planes being on the ground all at once, along with the planes that are already stationed here, plus an event. We have lots of protocols in place from security, safety, which of course is our primary focus on every corner of the airport. Jeff and I also just got a notification because we are the largest commercial service, Part 139 FAA regulated airport within this eclipse zone in New England. Larry mentioned we're going to Nashville at the end of the month for a national airport conference. Jeff and I will be presenting at that conference, talking about this eclipse event and how we work, not just scheduling all of these things, how we work with the FAA. They have their eyes on us right now. How we work with each entity, how Dave worked with not just FAA, but the Department of Homeland Security. It truly is a lot of moving pieces and a lot of moving parts, and it's going to be fantastic, safe, secure, and a unique perspective of the airport that not a lot of people get, which is pretty exciting.
And we have tickets here for anybody who's in the room that wants tickets. If you're on a call or any of the other commissioners, let me know and I can email tickets to you as well if you want to know. And can you coordinate this email? Thank you.
Since you're going to be presenting in Nashville, I imagine that you're going to try to capture the event. I mean, I'm just thinking, the imagery of all those planes and all the people and the music, you know, I'm sure that, you know, drones are not allowed in the facility, but, you know, anything that we could do to, you know, capture that and demonstrate whether it's this or what we were talking about before with the LODCC, 17 million. If people really start to see the airport as a pilot program for a lot of innovative things, then that's a big arrow in our quiver.
We have 3 photographers that are coming, and then we're also coordinating to have a time-lapse video recording of the entire event. So just stationary for 2.5 hours, recording everything as it gets dark and light. That was actually Nick's idea. He texted me like 1 o'clock in the morning with it. It's like, yeah, we'll make it happen. It's like, yeah, different angle
With snow up in the mountains?
everything.
It's gonna be pretty spectacular. They're really amazing. And it's beyond this room, right? There's lots of partners. Heritage Aviation has been phenomenal working with Dave to coordinate the reservation system that we needed. Overall, we'll see a press release most likely tomorrow, and the news will start picking this up more and more and more. One, if you're a passenger here, get here early on Monday. You know, we always advertise get here 2 hours early, but definitely leave and to give yourself enough time, because of course the eclipse is going to impact more than just this airport. Traffic is going to be very, very busy. 2, it's going to talk about we don't have any additional capacity for private aircraft anymore. Like Dave said, if planes land without a reservation, we're going to have to fit them in, and we built that into the contingency of additional parking. But the reservation system is closed, we are full, we are maxed out, and we will essentially be closed to private air at that point. Along with, you know, we're still open, commercial operations still are moving. We have multiple planes in and out between 2:30 and 4:30 on Monday. I think there's 6 total, 5 or 6 in, 5 out. None of them are right on in the totality, but close. Definitely in partial. So it's going to be an exciting, long team effort day with a lot of effort from our maintenance ambassadors and operations team being here in many different ways. Pretty exciting. All right. Quick snapshot of our statistics. This month I did something a little bit different. I started to show a forecast of what the May year looks like with our passenger outbound numbers. You can see January and February are a little bit lower than some of the past years, definitely lower than 2019 by about 2,000 passengers, 3,000 passengers. 4,000 passengers from 2019. The dashed blue line that goes through this chart here is a projected passenger number, outbound passengers. What's really exciting about this is you can start seeing a pickup really from March moving forward to April, definitely into May and the rest of the summer. These numbers are based on real airline schedules. Of course, those schedules change, usually, they definitely can change 6+ months out. This is also not the number of seats being projected. This is about 82% of those number of seats filled. As a reminder, our average load factors for the last year is close to 89%. This is only accounting for 82% of those seats that are scheduled right now. At the end of the calendar year 2024, our projected number is around 715,000 outbound passengers, which would be our second highest number since 2000. So we're watching this very closely. The numbers, especially the numbers for all our airlines are increasing. Like I said, after May, some of our highest percentage increases is American Airlines at 40% increased seating capacities over 2019. So these are really big numbers. And it's consistent with one, we have high load factors, meaning our planes are already full. We need more seats to accommodate the demand out of our region, and that's exactly what the forecast is showing. And now, need to sell those seats to make sure that these numbers come to
And I can add too, I met with the marketing team for Breeze last week, and they are extremely happy with how full those plans are. So those programs are observed. We can start even the Raleigh Jacksonville. It's like that hasn't started yet. It's looking pretty good.
Awesome. And as a reminder, that starts May 23rd, so we'll have a big press release, press conference on that particular day. This is the next couple of slides here. I'll try to cruise through as quickly as I can, and of course, stop me if there's any questions. This is the presentation that was reported to the subcommittee of the City Council, the TUC committee last week. Larry and I were there presenting with Colonel Finnegan, the Vermont Air National Guard Wing Commander. He also was there presenting some of his information. And the objective of the presentation was a reminder of where we are in our sustainability programs and our greenhouse gas emissions reporting. We didn't report this, as you can see, this is multiple logos ago on this particular report, but this is our 2019 sustainability report. This was produced as part of our 2019 master planning process and used data prior to 2019, of course. But it's a long-term commitment to make sure that we're hitting all of these bullet point topics as part of our sustainability program. And that led into an update of our sustainability and more precisely our greenhouse gas emissions reporting for all greenhouse gas emissions. Just a step back real quick, a bird's eye view of the country, of the US. One of the really important things that we talked about in the committee and now with you is the transportation sector of the United States and what that total greenhouse gas emissions contribution is from a United States perspective. The Environmental Protection Agency just released this snapshot, this picture in the top left corner, which is a massive report that just came out, that just actually closed a public comment period on this book about 2 weeks ago. And this has many details about all of the pie sections of this pie chart. Transportation of this pie chart is equating, as part of these numbers, equating to 29% of the total US greenhouse gas emissions numbers. Of that 29%, you can see in the top right corner, aircraft contribute 8% of the greenhouse gas emissions. When you look at it over time too, the US sector is doing really well. There's a lot that could be done, a lot of really important things that needs to be done to decrease that number for specifically for aircraft operations. But when you look at the bottom left chart, you're looking at a 1990 to current greenhouse gas emissions inventory, if you will, or CO2 equivalent number. 1990 to today, aircraft decreased 17% on the total greenhouse gas emissions. That means we're doing good, but again, really important that I said that there's a lot more to do, and we, Burlington, want to be a part of that next step of what we can contribute to. This bottom right report is actually an even updated version. This comes directly from the document in the picture here, which just was released. Again, showing jet fuel specifically, of 218 metric tons of CO2 equivalent versus those prior years, again, all the way through 1990. This is an EPA report. The next slide is talking about specifically the aviation climate action plan. This was released back in 2021 by the by the Department of Transportation, working with the Federal Aviation Administration. This is now talking about what can we do? What can we input into the aviation system to decrease significantly greenhouse gas emissions? And the answer and the commitment of the FAA is to introduce sustainable aviation fuel into the United States. You can see on that chart on the bottom right-hand corner that the line graph, if you follow the green dip, which was COVID, if you follow that green dip up and follow the red line that goes all the way to the top, that's it. There's no change to technology, no change to fuel, nothing changes with the aviation sector as far as greenhouse gas emissions reduction goes. Of course, that's going to increase pretty dramatically through 2050. As you start looking at this line, the more you introduce to decrease greenhouse gas emissions, airline fleet renewal, new aircraft, better engines and energy use, new aircraft technology in those engines, that decreases that line to 2050. Operational improvements, that also means FAA, air traffic improvements as far as their flights go. And then the green, both dashed and solid areas, introduce sustainable aviation fuel at a reduced rate and then at a full rate into the market. A significant decrease in greenhouse gas emissions through aviation, aircraft, specifically emissions. We've talked a little bit about sustainable aviation fuel in this group through Heritage Aviation. Heritage has been a great partner of ours to get that commodity at this airport, to introduce it into the market. The fuel itself is mixable. So we don't need new infrastructure, we don't need any of that. It's a blended fuel that can go directly to Heritage Aviation in their current infrastructure capacity. The problem right now is it's a very difficult commodity to get to, especially on the East Coast. Most of the manufacturing right now happens on the West Coast. But you can see over time, since 2016, when it was really starting to be discussed in the United States, little was being invested towards sustainable aviation fuel. And just last year, that estimated number of $26 million of procurement of sustainable aviation fuel, and that's only going to increase as the commodity is more readily available everywhere in the United States, especially in the East and Northeast. I'm going to pause there just for a second because the next couple of slides are related just to us, so this might be a good question for somebody's report.
Nick, thank you very much for that. That's really inspiring to see visually what is possible, especially in a short amount of time. A couple of questions that I have on the chart on the lower right that goes to 2050. I'm assuming that the light green, the dotted green, that's almost unattainable. Is that accurate, or are we talking about a zero emission possibility?
This is the goal of the FAA, to be a zero emission possibility for aviation itself through all of these methods. But clearly the big one is introducing the sustainable aviation fuel into mostly commercial airline markets. That's where the majority of the fuel is in the industry. So introducing that fully and eliminating Jet A fuel would create that zero emissions number. The goal of the FAA is to do that by 2050.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
They have a goal, so many gallons by 2030, and the 2050 goal, if you get it. So
Without getting too far into the weeds, do any of you know what what that process is? I mean, to get zero emissions out of something that had a high emission content.
Yeah.
It would seem as if that there would be a huge difference in the quality of the material that you're being used, which obviously it can't be. It needs to be high performance substance. I'm just wondering, do you have any idea what that process is?
No, a slight idea of the process of creating the fuel itself, but not the full picture yet of what that actually looks like. You know, yes, right now this is an interchangeable fuel, blended fuel, so you can bring this in. But what I'm not too familiar is how that works in the actual aircraft and what aircraft are capable of using that fuel right now, whether you're talking small jets all the way to the commercial airlines. And that's where that technology and certification of these engines is gonna come into play. But I'm not too familiar. That's
Nick, so one of the places that you can actually see the airplanes that are flying around right now at any given moment all the way around the globe is on the ICAO website for sustainability, for sustainable fuel. I can put it in the chat. It's kind of cool because the section, you can dive deep into their website and you can be there for hours, but we use it at the college to show the students kind of what's coming. And there's lots of different fuels being tested, but the ones that are in the market that are being mixed and used right now, you can tell what airplanes in the world that are actually flying on them. And several of the legacy carriers here in the United States are already using those fuels.
That's great. Yeah, ICAO, or the International Civil Aviation Organization, is another great partner and good point, Robin, of partner of the FAA and that collaboration of that 2030 goal of reduction, but then of course the 2050 zero emissions goal. Yeah, and there are, it's tough to see on the shared screen, but on the document itself, there are some links associated with this, both to the FAA sustainability page as well as these particular documents as well.
I'm just curious about that transformation of the product itself, because the only thing I can think of that's similar is like ethanol. I mean, that's supposedly a corn-based transformation that was supposed to be great, but then all of a sudden there were some externalities and impacts on the engines, and now some people don't even want to use that.
You have on my list of things to read and do is get up to speed on how this is made, manufactured stuff. But a lot of it even would be coming from grease traps from restaurants or something like that, you know.
And as you can imagine, the certification and the regulated process for jet engines is gonna be significant, yeah.
But you can also see in that chart on the top right that it's happened relatively quickly.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, my question was gonna be, and this is probably a stat you don't know, but I was like, yeah, so it's 26 million out of what, right? Are we not, it's gone from like 0.01% to 0.1%?
Or, and then if you look at it from normal, normal jet sales.
But yeah, that's why I was like curious, like, it looks great, but like, it could be like this much.
Yeah,
That's a good
And
point.
just for full caveat, I didn't create these charts, these came from the report.
It's gave your heritage.
Great, so if there's no other questions about those, I can keep moving forward. So this is our inventory of greenhouse gas emissions. We separate them by scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. Why don't we skip 2 slides ahead, and you can do the what scope 1, 2, 3 is. Yeah, this.
So scope 1, as it says, is direct emission sources that are owned and controlled by BTB, such as fuel used to power airport vehicles and facilities. Scope 2 is indirect emissions associated with purchasing electricity for heating and cooling, powering facilities. Those two together, what we actually control here on site is about 1% of the pie. The other 99% is aircraft taxiing, taking off, and landing. And I forget to what distance, is it their peak altitude?
Yeah, if
Like
we
that.
go up one
Yeah.
slide,
So-
yeah.
So, yeah, here we go, yeah. So,
Yeah, so scope 1 and 2 is everything we can control, buildings and electricity and fuel being used in this building and within our own that type of thing. Scope 3 is like Larry said, 99% of all of our greenhouse gas emissions when we see that inventory. Of all of the emissions, you can see the top 3 lines on this bar graph: aircraft crews, aircraft landing and takeoff operations, and aircraft auxiliary power units are all coming from essentially running the engines of an aircraft in some form. Aircraft landing and takeoff operations is exactly that. That is everything that is 3,000 feet and below to landing, and then taking off from runway up to 3,000 feet. What is the greenhouse gas emissions coming from that operation? Typically, we do not study anything beyond 3,000 feet elevation. And that's defined and not regulated, but recommended by the Airport Council International, which it goes through an accreditation process. Which we currently are undergoing that process. However, we decided that we do want to study the entire cruise of the greenhouse gas emissions coming out of and to Burlington. That was at the request, I think, of this board at the time we talked about it. Must have been probably a year ago, as well as the 2 committee. So the aircraft cruise is 3,000 feet from this airport all the way to 3,000 feet to the destination airport and vice versa. So we're studying all of that greenhouse gas emissions. Aircraft auxiliary power unit is literally the auxiliary unit or generator that they're running on the ground. And burning some fuel. So those 3 components themselves equate to pretty much, you can see, pretty much 90% of that pie chart from the previous number. That does include Vermont National Guard operations as well as our forecasted operations or operations for all other aircraft at that time. An important note is we're calling this our 2019 greenhouse gas emissions report or inventory. 2019 was our peak year, especially for building operations, passengers, and all of the above. So it was really, really important for us to look at what our benchmark was, what our highest level was, so we can look at that from there. Operation.
Also, there's a lot of, the whole team, Marie, myself, Anna, Kirk, everybody, Madison, hours and hours getting all this information for this report, just, so a lot of effort went into it, and it's gonna continue because there's still more and more to do. Sorry, Nick. No, really. So operations though, it's really important to know that, especially when we're talking about military operations, a question that has come up is, well, why are we starting 2019 aircraft operations if our number is up? And if you recall, 2019 was the transition of F-16s to F-35s. Well, we actually didn't study 2019 military operations. This includes 2022 military operations. We have a little bit of both to make sure that we're creating that benchmark at the high level where we actually are. So we have a benchmark of where we need to go. On the next slide and online for viewers and for yourselves, we do have a link. It's a little tough to see there, but in that box down there, Hannah added a link to the actual report, which is just the cover of it, of the entire inventory, which is about a 40-page report on all of the details of these individual items. I do just want to touch base a little bit on the first bullet point there, the Airport Council International ACA program, or
or the airport carbon accreditation program. They have a 7-step program of accrediting airports in the entire world. They're the sole accreditation of airports for carbon reduction. We are gonna be part of that inventory, and we have submitted our requests to be accredited at what's called level 1, which is the mapping, the inventory, making sure we understand what our baseline is.
Which we have to have an independent person certify this information, so that's going to get that person.
Yeah, we have VHB, the consultant that made this report, we have ourselves, and then we have an independent person say, did we all look at the right information to get that proper benchmark? In the future, our goal is to receive multiple levels of accreditation, so that we can continue not just mapping it or inventorying it, but actually reducing our goals. Scope 1 and 2 are really where we are focused. We need countries' help on sustainable aviation. We can't do that at Burlington ourselves. But scope 1 and 2, when we build new buildings, for example, we need to make sure we're putting in the proper utilities like geothermal and solar and mass timber, and that's what we can control to reduce our numbers in the future. And that's all gonna come out of this entire process. This isn't just a one and done document. This is gonna be a living, breathing document and accreditation process in perpetuity. We can't stop with it, so that we can reduce our goals.
Another important thing is when we talk about all that, we do a cost benefit analysis of all those items when we are doing building related stuff. So we're making sure we're not doing a worse detriment than what we would if we just did a locally, so.
And just for reference, that accreditation process is not easy to do. We are gonna be one of a few airports in the country to go through this process. In fact, there are 44 airports in the United States that are accredited in one of the levels. And then once we get our level 1 accreditation, we'll be the second airport in New England to receive our accreditation. The 20th in the United States for level 1 accreditation. So it's a very difficult process and a commitment of all of us to make sure we're doing this. And there is a total of 551 airports in the entire world that are now accredited, and we're hopefully gonna be 552. The remaining slides are just kind of a quick update and a nice segue of how we're building new sustainability projects. We were joined by Senator Leahy, former Mayor Burlington, Mrs. Leahy, you can see in the picture, former City Council President Karen Paul, Airport Commission Chair Tim George, as well as the. And we had a great time displaying our Project Next facility at the March 20th press event. We shared for the first time with the community the remaining slides in this presentation, and really highlighted what the Project Next is gonna look like, both from a bird's eye view, and then there's a couple of 3D models in this building as well. We shared it with the commission prior to the event, and we updated a couple of them, and here they are.
We have a URL on our website, Project Next. You can watch a video walkthrough of all the renderings 3D. It's actually quite long.
And that is one April report.
Great, thank you, Nick. Chip, you have a question?
Yeah, Nick, thank you for the report. I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about, I don't know if the same report on sustainability and climate change was presented to TUC. I know there have been some policy objectives in terms of addressing climate change a little more aggressively. My unfortunate takeaway from your presentation was, while I appreciate efforts, are being undertaken and progress being made, we control such a small piece of that overall picture. I'm hypothesizing that didn't go over particularly well at Tuke. But I wasn't in the room, so I don't know if you gave the same presentation, and if, just as sort of a advance warning, were there other policies or things that they were in discussion that we should be aware of that may be coming down the pike?
Yeah, good question. The presentation to Tuke was, there were more slides associated with more of the details. That also is available on City Clerk, on the March 26th Tuke committee meeting. Generally though, the conversation was really well received. Very, very similar comment, right? We only control 1%. Look at the 99%, which is aircraft operations. But the conversation was, this is why we really need to maintain our progress and our commitment to sustainable aviation fuel, and it really was felt by the committee members.
Also with lessons learned, so things we do to share with other parts of the city when they consider the stuff that we're doing.
Like geothermal, as we're going through our geothermal construction, the sharing of the material and testing and whatnot for policy work that either the Tuke or the council or other builders can benchmark off of us is something that we're really committed to sharing as well.
The cost benefit reviews, stuff like that,
Yeah.
so.
Great, thank you.
Another point to your question, Chip, is part of the conversation at Tuke and the request to present at Tuke was also to fulfill the city council resolution that was passed in I don't remember the date, but it was over a year ago that it was passed, committing the city, the airport, and the Vermont Air National Guard to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in some capacity. The resolution did spell out that they would utilize augmented reality training systems more often than flying aircraft. And I think it's best if Colonel Finnegan kind of represented that, but he did explain the technology that was available and the technology that wasn't available for that to actually happen, but committed to making sure that the Air Guard was also committing with the city of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. They were the first geothermal field on this airport. Beta was the second. We're going to be the third geothermal field. They were the first to have a massive solar field. And with the passage of the new lease agreement, they're recommitting based on available funds now because of that lease extension, that they're already investing that into battery storage capacity for the fire department and other various programs. So that was also a big part of the Tuke conversation, making sure the resolution and, if you recall, the memorandum of understanding as part of the lease agreement, that it was all being continually discussed.
Thank you. I can't tell if you're looking at me. I have no further questions. I don't know if anyone else is.
So sure. All right, commissioners, anything else? All right, close it down. Item 10, commissioner items. Any items from commissioners this month? Okay, good. Moving on to 11, follow-up items. I think we did not, it didn't make the agenda, but we had the timing of the funds to the BTC reserve fund, if you were gonna look into the last month.
Yes, sorry, I thought you said don't put it on the.
Yeah, no, I said it's not on here, but we would respond. We're gonna try.
Gotcha.
But beyond, yeah, so you'll just follow up with us separately on that. And Anything commissioners want to add as a follow-up item from this meeting? Before we move to adjourn, I just want to point out the date of our next meeting is May 8th instead of May 1st. So that is a 1 week delay from our normal meeting time. I just want to point that out. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
That's moved by Grace, or second.
Second.
Thank you, Rob. Does anyone not want to adjourn? Well, I'll take it as unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.